Good morning. This is Katie Robinson Edwards, your Umlauf curator, coming to you live from Wooldridge Square in Austin, Texas, with a very special guest today. And I'm going to, we have a virtual guest here, and that would be Booker T. Washington, and then an actual guest, Charles Peveto. So I am going to flip the camera around and tell you a little bit about Charles Peveto, and we will get going. This, my friends, is Charles Peveto, one of my favorite people, and an incredibly, probably the person I know who knows more about Austin history, maybe next to Michael Barnes, or equal with Michael Barnes, every kind of Austin history. And we're in a process, and the Umlauf's actually been in a process with a number of its shows and the Hotel Ella series about talking more about hidden history of Austin, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Charles has been a long-time employee and upper-level worker at the Texas Historical Commission. He has been on literally dozens of boards over his career. How many boards are you on right now? Five. Boards that involve preservation largely and history, incredibly knowledgeable person, and also an art collector and a very helpful person. You should follow him on Instagram and Facebook. And he was also going to tell us in his current role, can you tell us what your current role is relating to Wooldridge Square?
Yes, I'm currently the chair of Friends of Wooldridge Square. I've been involved with the Friends group that was founded 10 years ago by Michael McGill, and eventually became co-chair. And my wonderful friend and co-chair, Mitchell McGovern, just recently passed away, so in essence I'm now chair.
Well, thank you for being here and doing Facebook Live with us. I know you have two meetings that you're on your way to. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are? Should I start with the plaque, or should we come back to that?
Sure, let's start here. 1 year ago, Juneteenth, we unveiled this important interpretive panel under the umbrella of Our Austin Story, an interpretive strategy created by Ted Eubanks. And one of the very rich, important histories right here at Wooldridge Square was the appearance of Booker T. Washington. He spoke on the evening of September 29th, 1911, at the bandstand that we'll walk down to. That evening, he spoke here because he had requested to speak at the state capitol, and the legislature denied his request because he was African American. And Mayor Wooldridge, who had just enhanced this square in 1910, the year before, said, "You're going to speak at the square." And so on that evening, he spoke to 5,000 plus black and white residents of Austin when the population wasn't even 30,000. That was an enormous percentage. Standing here with the mayor was Governor Colquitt, who was embarrassed by his legislature, so he came and listened to Booker T. Washington speak here. And it was a very important historical occasion. He was traveling the South advocating for civil rights, and Austin was one of his main stops in Texas.
And I know we don't have a photograph of him from this place. Do we have any record of what this speech was, the content of it?
We do, and I can get you a copy of that. Ted Eubanks, when he did this interpretive strategy, not just of this square, but of all four original Austin historic squares and Congress Avenue, it's an important interpretive strategy. It's an important narrative that starts telling the story of Austin. And it's important that this narrative expand, and we're in the process of doing that, because Austin, like many cities, we need a complete, comprehensive narrative of our city. The good and the bad. You can't leave out history. You have to tell the whole story. And that's what we're trying to do, starting right here at Wooldridge Square. And a really interesting fact, just across the street at the Austin History Center, which I'm on the board of the History Center
This is the Austin History Center? Mm-hmm.
This History Center was the 1933 Central Library that was built. And prior to this being built, there were 3 churches on this site, 2 of which were African American churches. And so that's, again, this is part of Austin's history that we need to tell. I think it would be very important. So if we could step down to the bandstand, I'd like to show you that.
Great, I'll follow you, and I have our picture of Booker T with us so we can pretend he's there.
Well, this is really an important public space, civic space. And as you see it today is how it was developed in 1910 when Mayor Wooldridge had a vision for all of our park system. And so it started right here, the enhancement of our beautiful parks in Austin. And it has changed very little. Our Friends group has advocated for the restoration, the maintenance of it, which I think we've been very successful. In 2012, we spent about $450,000 on the rehabilitation of the square. So we're very proud of that. And it included the rehabilitation of the historic bandstand that was designed in 1910 by Charles Henry Page.
So is this the actual spot where the speech happened?
Yes, he stood right here on the bandstand. And what's really striking is as you stand here, you can barely see through the trees the Capitol, but then it would have been a complete view, a direct view of the Capitol.
I know some of our viewers and listeners probably have not set foot inside Wooldridge Square, so we encourage everybody to do so, read the plaque, experience some of the history here. And I can't quite...
Well, the pecan tree.
Yep, the tree's in the way. But here we are. Great. And I do have, so this is, we don't have a photograph of Booker T. Washington actually here. That's my mask on the left. Here he is at another location.
Well, that was taken at St. John's Orphanage, which was African American, and that site now, it eventually turned into Highland Mall, and it's now ACC campus. So there's a lot of history right there. I mean, again, it's important that we do interpretations citywide. So we collect and tell these stories, not just collect them, we need to tell the stories through programming. It's very important that we tell our whole history.
It seems like the story of Booker T. Washington speaking here in 1911 was not told for a long time, or not in the common language of what made the city of Austin. Does that seem accurate?
You know, there are some people that say it was forgotten. I think that, like many stories in many communities, many stories are just not told. They're basically swept under the carpet. And that's the importance of, again, telling your whole history all along. Now we're scrambling to do that. We should have been doing this for many years, and we just haven't been. So, but it's better late than never. I think it's very important that we get all of these histories out. That's how you're going to have complete community buy-in. Again, telling the good and the bad. You can't leave anything out. It's very important.
Hear, hear. I so agree. And we're broadcasting this 2 days from Juneteenth. And what happened 1 year ago on Juneteenth at this site, if you'll just remind us?
Well, 1 year ago, as part of this interpretive strategy, Our Austin Story, our partners worked together, and we had an unveiling of the interpretive panel for Booker T. Washington on Juneteenth. Council member Kathy Tovo spoke, former Mayor Lee Cook, Jeff Trevelyan, the Travis County Commissioner. So I guess we had about 125 guests here, standing right here where Booker T. Washington spoke, unveiling the sign commemorating that event. So we're very proud of that.
Charles, thank you for leading us through this today, and I want to tell our audience that this is the first in a series that we're going to do around town, uncovering some hidden history, or maybe history that people just haven't been talking about. And is there anything else you'd like to say today?
Well, thank you for coming here today and giving me the opportunity to tell just one of the many stories that started right here.
And thank you for doing it for us. We love having you as our guide. And thank you, everybody, and happy Juneteenth. Take care, and please donate to the Umlauf if you feel so inclined, or to another organization. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.